And to this day, about a year and a half later, I am still have not brushed my teeth at all. I haven't even flossed them. I'm pretty sure I'm never going to sleep on the bed again. It's that comfortable.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. I haven't showered in 5 years. And that was about 4 years ago.
So there's lots and lots of people now starting the carnivore diet, but you personally have entered some quite unique territory. I mean, most people haven't completely stopped brushing their teeth. So tell us about that. How's that going? Why? And how does that relate to the carnivore diet?
Yes, I haven't actually brushed my teeth in around 900 days already. And that might sound absolutely ridiculous. In fact, if you went to a dentist, they would be just in absolute shock and awe and horror looking at your teeth. They were in shock and awe, but they weren't in horror because they thought my teeth were completely clean. Yes. So how exactly did that happen? Well, first I started off the carnivore diet and then I looked at it and I went, they say that apparently our ancestors didn't have any teeth problems whatsoever. We didn't even need to brush our teeth, and our teeth were perfectly immaculate. So I looked at that and I took that as a challenge. And I said, if carnivore works that well, I'm willing to give myself a cavity in the process to see if it really is that true. And I went an entire year without brushing my teeth. And around that time, I ended up going to the dentist afterwards because I was like, you know what? This is kind of crazy. Actually, what ended up happening was my mom ended up seeing me walk into the bathroom, and then she thought, hey, are you going to brush your teeth before you go to bed? And I said, I haven't brushed my teeth in an entire year. And she panicked. She freaked out and she was like, oh my God, what Blaise? That's ridiculous. So, so she said, you're going to the dentist. So we went to the dentist and we went to the dentist. First, there's a nurse or a person who asks the questions and then says, okay, so all these questions. And then she gets to the one question, when was the last time you brushed your teeth? And I said, you know what? I'm not going to answer that question. She's like, what? So I just keep denying the question over and over again until she's like, okay, fine, whatever. I'm just going to get the dentist in here. Dentist comes in and he's like, okay, so you've answered every single question here except when was the last time you brushed your teeth? Why is that? And I said, well, I was hoping you could tell me that answer. When do you think the last time I brushed my teeth was? And how often do I brush my teeth? So he gives my teeth a quick glance, about 3 minutes looking at it, and he goes, okay, well, it looks like you brush your teeth about probably once or twice a day because I don't see any plaque on them. They actually look really healthy. And that was the moment where I knew I was doing something right because I looked at that and I went an entire year without brushing my teeth. And even the dentist couldn't tell. And in fact, he thought my teeth were immaculate. And to this day, about a year and a half later, I am still have not brushed my teeth at all. I haven't even touched them, not even flossed them, which is actually kind of crazy to think about it because most likely on carnivore, you might get a piece of meat stuck in there in your teeth and you might not be able to get it out with your tongue. And I still haven't had a problem. So it's a little strange to think about that because I haven't needed to touch my teeth. And somehow my mouth is perfectly healthy, no plaque. And it's a little weird, a little bit shocking how amazing the results are.
Do you think you would have had the same results if you were eating a load of starch?
Oh boy, no. I got so many cavities. Okay, oh boy, that's a long story. I've probably had at least like 4 or 5 cavities in the past because my teeth would just get absolutely destroyed. I would brush them every day too, and lo and behold, doesn't matter. I still get a cavity, still get a cavity, still get a cavity, and it was getting kind of annoying as well. The drilling process was probably the most painful thing. So I'm really happy I can avoid that now.
But our ancestors, they were on a starch diet, no? I thought that our ancestors were on a starch-based diet.
Oh, you most certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man, if you look at, I would love to see some of these people eating tons of these starch. I would love to see their teeth. Starch-based diet, huh? Looking
Yeah.
pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, carry your toothbrush at hand. Yeah, exactly. Or the frugivore diet. I mean, come on. Have you seen those guys?
Adult fruitarian. I don't know if you've seen him before. His
Maybe.
speech is so slow. He's having a difficult time not just pronouncing the words, but coming to the conclusion of what he's supposed to say. And then he
Yeah.
repeats afterwards what he just said.
He's probably having equally a difficult time finding B12 and B6 and DHA, heme iron, things that the brain
Oh,
loves, carnitine.
Yeah, he's missing a little too much.
Mm, crazy. So that's your teeth, but I've also heard that you haven't showered. Is that true? You haven't showered for a long time?
Yes, in fact, that was even before Carnivore, oddly enough, which
Right.
I saw this and I got the idea from an Australian doctor, and he was like, "Hey, yeah, that's right. I haven't showered in 5 years, and that was about 4 years ago. So that's probably like 9 years already. It's quite a long time. So I looked at that and I went, what the heck? What is this? And at that time, I was on my health journey and I was trying to figure out what is optimal health and what isn't optimal health. And I'm still even trying to this day. And I look at that and I went, hmm, if he's really right on that, let's see if it works. So I try it myself. And before even though hearing this, I heard about somebody else who did something a little similar, and his name is Asmongold, very popular gamer.
Funny.
Yeah, you probably know him, right?
Yeah. I've not long discovered him, kind of thing, and I have got a couple of videos. One of them I reacted to his, is it $2 steak?
Yeah.
That cracked me up. That cracked me up. And
Yep.
another one where actually I was reacting to the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. speech, but because he got away with it, I think he tweaked sounds. I was like, well, if I just react to the speech via him, then I'm all good, you know. So yeah, he's featured a couple of times on my channel.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sort of in the gaming space, so I like kind of heard about him through that.
Mm.
He's like probably the biggest, one of the biggest people in gaming that I'm aware of, anyways. And in that scene, he did this one thing where he's like, yeah, so I just don't shower, and I don't really like to shower, in fact. And when I can, I just avoid showering completely. The only time that I shower is when I go outside, and otherwise I don't really shower, or something along those lines. And I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what the heck is this? So I saw Asmongold before, and already seeing this Australian doctor, I look at that and I go, okay, there's something here. Maybe there's something here. There has to be something, right? So I say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go straight first into it. We're going to see how this works. And about 2 months in or so, it's probably when the adjustment period was happening, because my skin was kind of still really oily.
Mm.
Right now, it's not even oily at all. But before, it was really oily. The hair was, I had really, really long hair, and it was even worse. All of that was just terrible. And I was like, okay, well, there has to be something, right? Around that 2 months to 3 months area, everything just kind of changed. And I
Mm.
had no oily skin. The hair was no problem anymore. I looked at that and I was like, this is weird. The smell of almost every area, the only smell that is very obvious, which I found this very interesting. The only smell that's very obvious is if the armpits get lifted up. If the armpits don't get lifted up, it's almost you can't tell the smell.
Mm.
So it's sort of, to me, it reminds me of certain animals who have something similar. They don't necessarily have the same thing, but as an example, like ducks would have this one gland on the back of them that they use to oil themselves all the time and to oil their feathers as like
Yeah.
a cleaning mechanism. So I found that sort of interesting, and I kind of thought like and there's other animals who do other things, but I sort of found it along those lines so it's kind of like an indicator that it might be helpful in this case. And I, as well, one very weird story. This was a very, very strange story. 2 years in, there is this girl that I meet. I can't really remember her name. Damn. Anyways, I met
Classic.
this girl. I met this girl, and we were talking, and it was like a friend of a friend sort of thing. And I basically ended up explaining like my whole story. I'm not really afraid to share it for the most part. I'm pretty much really open about it, because usually when I meet somebody, they have no idea. And then after I tell them, they kind of like are in disbelief, because they're like, he should be stinking right now. What's going on? Right. It's kind of a weird shocker. I tell her this story, and she's like, oh, really? Oh, that's sort of interesting. And I'm like, yeah, it's perfectly normal. And she's like, wait, let me smell. So then like she tries to smell me, and she's like, there's nothing. And then she's like, wait. And then eventually she gets like around this area, and she's like, something smells a little bit different here. So I lift my armpit, and then she's like, oh, wow, that's like what a man's supposed to smell like. Oh, I like it. And I'm like, what the heck? I got like this weird kind of thing where it reminded me of, it kind of, I don't really like saying it like this, but how, I don't know if you've ever seen like a dog sniff another dog's ass.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm a window cleaner. I've seen it all.
Yeah, I kind of got this like weird I don't know if I'd call it uncomfortable, but weird like thought of like, oh my god, it's sort of like that, isn't it?
Pheromones,
Because
right?
it's yeah, so that kind of shocked me, and I was like, a little weird, but she liked it, which was kind of strange. I wasn't expecting that, right? And then eventually the friend of a friend, the guy, was kind of curious too, and he's like, what the hell? So
Did he like it too? Come on, both of you. Come get some.
yeah. Oh my god, right? Oh god, that would have freaked me. That would have been like a little
Start
okay.
charging. You're just sitting on the wall, like around a fountain, like, $5. Here you go.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, so he ended up smelling it and he's like, oh yeah, it sort of does smell like a man. Like it didn't like turn him on in that sense, but he was like, yeah, it's sort of weird. I kind of get what she's talking about. And I was like, at that point, I was like really confused because I haven't really like tested with anybody. I didn't really ask anybody like, hey, can you smell my armpits? Like, none of that sort of thing. And I ended up getting that result. So I was like, okay, this is really weird. And I don't know why this is working so well. And then when I go carnivore, it changed even more. So for instance, my acne is like improving. All of my skin conditions are getting way, way better. But another thing I had was like eczema, and my back would get a little bit itchy sometimes. And I didn't have that anymore on carnivore. So that was like I was happy about that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it seemed I think carnivore was just an addition maybe to it. I'm not too sure. I think it has to do something with the skin microbiome and the skin microbiome adjusting. I'm not entirely too sure what it is
Yeah, I
exactly.
agree. I agree.
But yeah, that's my thought. And same thing with the mouth oral microbiome. I think it's the exact same thing.
I think you're right about the biome. I think everything's got its own biome, and if you're cleaning that all the time, your body's probably trying to like fight back and like, what are you doing? You just keep washing me away, and what's going on?
Yeah.
That's got to be true of just brushing your teeth every day as well, like multiple times a day, especially with harsh products of fluoride and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the same sort of thing. I heard a lot about the fluoride stuff, and that kind of got me interested because there's a lot of things about fluoride that
Mm.
aren't good that I'm aware of. It's not just like halide and the affinity to sort of I guess you could say kind of mimic iodine and a couple other halides that you might use, like iodine and chloride, if I chlorine, if I remember correctly. So I found that sort of interesting. Like maybe there's something here because clearly, like there's no way humans were brushing their teeth with
No,
toothpaste, right?
right.
So that's the sort of thing that got me. That's the thing that really kind of like made me jump forward to this because I was like, it just to me it sounds ridiculous to think an animal is supposed to lose all of its teeth by like
Yeah,
an
yeah. I mean,
early age.
we're
So
all out there just living without any of these inventions, right? It's just natural, organic nature. That's the way it is. I should probably stop doing that because I freak people out. I look like I'm kind of like what's that character in the Spider-Man movie?
yeah. Oh
Um,
man, I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about now. I think my best assumption as to what it is or my thoughts on it are probably having to do with fatty acid versus glucose oxidation, and glucose oxidation being um, sort of related to higher deuterium content, and because of that, it's a growth factor and it allows for bacteria to grow even more rapidly. Whereas in terms of the bacteria can't do that same thing with fatty acid content,
yeah,
and the glucose content in the meat is like near minimal. So I think it might be something related to that. It could also be related to like vitamin and mineral interactions, because that topic is so complex that I can't even like it's all over the place.
yeah. It's interesting because obviously you have got frugivores and you've got omnivores that eat a lot of plant material, but they've obviously got a different biome, different enzymes, all of this different environment where they can cope and their teeth can withstand that kind of well, it's not abuse, I suppose, for them. It's just normal. But for us,
Yeah.
we've all done those experiments as kids in school. You put your tooth in the Coke and the orange juice and that kind of thing, and you can see what erodes teeth and this kind of thing. And it's sugar and starch and all this stuff, not meat, not fish, not dairy. How long have you been carnivore now, anyway?
I've been carnivore for about 2 years, getting closer to three.
Oh, right.
Basically the exact same time that I started not brushing my teeth. I also basically was going carnivore, and I was like, Might as
Okay.
well try it.
Yeah, yeah. I thought maybe we were similar in terms of how long we've been carnivore. I've been doing it for just over 2 years and 2 months. So yeah, you're closer to 3 years now. That's great. So what kind of benefits have you noticed other than the fact that, eating this way, you don't need to brush your teeth?
Oh man, there's a lot of things that so for instance, my skin used to be way, way worse. Now it's much better. I do still have some spots every here and there, and I'm not entirely sure what that is. I am sort of curious. I'm not too sure if it's like a plant sterol or something related to what I had before, but I do know that a lot of my chest acne that I used to have is completely gone. But in the process of all my chest acne going away, I had even worse acne on my face. Same thing with the acne on my back, exactly the same thing. It's like really, really bad, and it seems as if it's going away slowly. So even being like quite literally 2 years on carnivore, my acne still isn't gone, which is a little bit absurd to think about it for me. And I kind of wonder what it is, because I have no idea what it is, and I really don't. I really have no idea what it is.
What's your diet like? Have you tried a lion diet for a long period of time? Yeah, and you didn't
Yeah.
notice like benefits from, say, cutting out pork or monogastric meat?
Well, I basically already have pork cut out. I have a lot of meat cut out. I basically, for the most part, eat lion, and then every now and then, which is very, very rarely, I will have eggs. But for the most part, it's pretty much lion. Some organs, I guess, but very, very rarely. I'll have an organ once every 3 days, maybe once every 5 days. I have blood. I have blood very, very often. I love the taste of blood.
Mm.
But other than that, yeah, because I don't know, because I tried cutting so many things out. I literally tried like just chicken and seeing how that works. I tried just pork. I tried just beef. I tried like pretty much only eggs. I've tried like so many things, and I still haven't really gotten like it didn't just like completely fix my skin immediately. So it kind of makes me wonder what it is. I think it might, I'm not entirely too sure what it is, but I do know that it built before, anyways. It was building up around my lymph nodes, and I would have these giant, like swollen areas next to here, and they would just be leaking, which it was like really disgusting, honestly.
Mm.
But yeah, it was just absolutely awful, and that used to be completely covered all around my neck. I mean, I even still have it a little bit, probably on this side for that matter. This side is mostly healed, but it's still, it's really, really bad. And yeah, when I had that, I noticed that all the acne eventually went away, but still it was like in my facial area. It always seems to end up in my face towards the end. I don't know why exactly. It seems to concentrate towards the face,
How
but
about fluids and that? Have you been a coffee drinker?
no,
No?
drink only water. Oddly
Right.
enough, I've drinking only water. I've even like tried deuterium depleted water for a little bit, seeing if that helps. I've tried pretty much I've tried so many things, and I have no idea what it is. But I do know that it's going away. On
Yeah.
carnivore, it is
Yeah.
100% going away, but it's going away so slowly that it makes
Mm.
me think it's probably gonna, by the end of maybe 3 or 4 years, then the acne will finally be gone. But until then, even including the back acne, because the back acne is still there, but the chest acne is like completely gone. So that's good at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. I used to have a bit of that. I used to suffer a lot with my face, and that kind of went a bit, but though I would still break out a little bit. The tones are kind of more even now. The acne went on my back in like, sort of like a couple of weeks or whatever it was. And like I say, I don't really sort of sweat or burn in the sun, and everything stays kind of even. Much like yourself, well, not much like yourself, I suppose. I do wash with water. I don't use
Yeah.
any sort of products, and I do brush my teeth usually once a day with just a brush. Just run it around my teeth. I don't know what. Maybe there's not much of a benefit for that. Like I say to a lot of people, I feel like I brush my teeth when I bite into a big steak, and then where I have got some like close together teeth, I'll just use a wooden toothpick just to fish that out, and that sort of does me quite well. But have you noticed any other benefits, sort of like cognitively?
Oh yeah. That's a big one. So for instance, in my case, I'm pretty extreme when it comes to competition and trying to be like as thinking as good as possible. And I played a game called League of Legends, like really, really difficult game. Anybody who knows, it's basically 4-dimensional chess on steroids, and then when you get even higher ranks, it's like 5-dimensional, 6-dimensional chess on like crack and steroids. It's pretty crazy. The game is really, really difficult as you continually increase in rank. And I've noticed that before I was pretty good at League of Legends. I was around top 1,000 or so North America. I would be able to reach about 70% win rate Masters, which is like a pretty high thing. And I switched eventually to Carnivore. And once I got to Carnivore, I ended up going from top 1,000 North America to rank 27 North America, and probably could have even gotten rank 1 in North America in all of League of Legends. So that's like a really, really big rank. And usually when anybody gets that rank, they're automatically scouted by first teams. Even people in Challenger usually are scouted by teams. And it's a League of Legends is or I don't know if it is still as big as it used to be, but I know that it for sure there's like a lot of money behind tournaments in League of Legends and professional play. And I was really, really good at League. Played that for a bit, multi-season challenger, so rank 27. Anybody who also knows 1K LP, 68% win rate, which is, for anybody listening, they would know that is so ridiculously high. That's it's not as high as Sturdy and a couple others, which are like really, really good, but it's still very, very, very high and very impressive. So anybody who knows that would probably be like, whoa, that's pretty good. So yeah, Carnivore just completely shot me through the roof when it comes to brain function, because quite literally I was seeing it when I was playing the game, and I was able to think like so much quicker. And that's what the game requires a lot of. It requires a lot of quick thinking, because it's sort of it's just imagine chess, except it's not just chess, but it's like real-time chess, sort of like bullet chess, I guess. You're supposed to move every like second or so, except like moving even faster gives you like a bigger benefit. It's a really, really complicated, really strategic, really difficult. Once again, it shot up like really quickly in that. Also, oh man, a lot of other things. Used to have brain fog regularly, gone, completely gone. Chronic fatigue, gone. I mean, the list is honestly endless. In terms of cognitive, depression, gone. Anxiety, gone.
Yeah,
So
awesome.
yeah.
Profound stuff. Yeah, definitely. To switch gears now a little bit, I've heard you mention how plants are killing themselves at a rapid rate. What do you mean by that? Do you want to get into that a little bit?
Yeah. So this is a really interesting thing, and it kind of makes me wonder a little bit about plants in the first place and why exactly they are killing themselves. Because it turns out why they're killing themselves might actually be beneficial for themselves, which is a really weird thing. But if we look at it, so what exactly makes plants kill themselves so quickly in the first place? Well, it's this thing called the rubisco enzyme. And this enzyme is so inefficient, and it just constantly cranks out tons of this reactive oxygen species. Now, this reactive oxygen species is very, very damaging, and especially for plants because they are filled with polyunsaturated fats. And polyunsaturated fats basically have delocalized electrons because they have a pi bond and a double bond, and that's like a really, really big deal. And that's a big deal because those reactive oxygen species love to attack those delocalized set of electrons, and they're basically like running straight at them whenever they get the chance. And it's kind of a big deal when you look at it in terms of the plant trying to protect itself from killing itself, because it has this enzyme that's constantly generating reactive oxygen species, and 1 out of every 4 times, or around that amount, it will generate a reactive oxygen species. Afterwards, it has to protect itself from that reactive oxygen species by generating antioxidants. And those antioxidants would usually quite literally be in the form of vitamin E or vitamin C or any sort of other antioxidant. And if you look at the purpose of vitamin E, what does vitamin E do? It prevents lipid peroxidation, a lipid radical. And what do plants have tons of? Basically tons of lipid radicals or tons of polyunsaturated fats. So they're producing all that vitamin E to protect themselves from killing themselves. And it's a sort of interesting concept, because if you look at, well, why exactly would that be beneficial for them, though? You said it's beneficial. So what's the benefit in them for this? Well, in this case, in terms of vitamin and mineral interactions, they would have such high vitamin E that it actually decreases the absorption of so many other vitamins and minerals that any sort of predator might be trying to get. So for instance, if the predator is trying to get iron, which is why vegans go emaciated so quickly, for instance, anemic, they also go emaciated for protein content, but why they go anemic so quickly, it's because quite literally the vitamin E content is so high. They have phytates also. Phytates will prevent iron absorption. Not only do they have phytates, they also have non-heme iron, which once again, like 5 to 10% absorption, and that's being generous. It's probably 5 to 10%, maybe 5 to 20%, but more so 5 to 10%. And not only that, they have oxalates, which oxalates like have mineral affinity. So now it just steals more iron, it just steals more minerals. And you're basically just lowering the iron absorption over and over and over again, to the point where if any, to me, it seems as if that any predator eating them will end up suffering some sort of a malnutrition thing, or like a nutrient deficiency, if they're not very well adapted to that. And quite literally, cows are a great example, because if you feed cows, like farmers, for instance, if farmers feed cows kale or any of that stuff, the cows can end up dying from hemolytic anemia, which basically means they're literally suffocating even though they're breathing in, which is like terrifying to think about. Imagine breathing in and not getting any oxygen in any air. That's literally what hemolytic anemia is. So it's absolutely insane. And I look at that and I go, wow, that's a very strange thing. Maybe that's why the Rubisco enzyme is beneficial, because they're killing themselves at such a rapid rate to protect themselves from predators. And it's like mind blowing to me. I thought about that. I don't know. I haven't heard anybody talk about that, but that's what I think anyways.
I've not explored that at all. No idea. In my opinion, though, everything in the plant serves the plant. You know, the antioxidants are pro-oxidants. You talk quite a bit about glucose as well. Do you want to get into the problems with glucose, and do you think that that's killing human beings faster?
Yeah. So this one I think is pretty much one of the main causes of aging itself. And the reason is because if you go through glucose oxidation versus beta oxidation, glucose oxidation 1 produces more reactive oxygen species. And not only that, you get a little bit less ATP in the process because of it. And in comparison to beta oxidation, which is fatty acid oxidation, you're getting way more ATP. And not only that, you are producing less reactive oxygen species. And that's a kind of a big deal, because there's basically 2 main contributing factors to every single thing that causes aging. And that's reactive oxygen species and inflammation, chronic inflammation, or inflammatory markers. Now, in order to increase those, you could just increase the reactive oxygen species, which you will do with glucose oxidation. So it might actually sort of line up with why people who basically are eating plants most of the time, or for that matter, the world, in the state that we have it today, aren't actually living towards the genomic data, based on what the genomic data says on how long humans are supposed to live. Because apparently, based on the genomic data, it says that humans are supposed to live about 120 to 150 years. And not only that, that genomic data lines up with historical data of the Ethiopian king talking to the Persian king and basically bragging and laughing at the Persian king's people for only living for 70 to 80 years, because his people, Ethiopian king's people, live to 120, if not longer. So that's a really, really interesting thing, because usually genomic data does not line up with historical data. There isn't like a griffin or a sphinx out there, and then we just found their bones. No, like, I'm not aware of it anyways, but that doesn't usually happen in science. And in this case, it did. So it was like kind of weird, a little bit suspicious. And that's what I think the main cause of all of this is, for that matter. It's literally just glucose oxidation. How often are you going through glucose oxidation? Because the reason why glucose oxidation causes more is more NADH is made. And we already know that complex 1 in oxidative phosphorylation actually is more prone to electron leakage. And because complex 1 is more prone to electron leakage, and if you make more NADH because you're going through glucose oxidation, then you are once again stimulating that pathway more. Therefore, you're generating more reactive oxygen species in the process. And basically, the ratio is about 10 to 2 in terms of NADH to FADH2. FADH2 goes to complex 2. And then the ratio for fatty acid oxidation is around 31 to 15, if I remember correctly. So it's 31 NADH to 15. And if you look at the ratio of glucose oxidation is around 5 to 1, and that of fatty acid oxidation is around 2 to 1. So it's the ratio that makes a really big difference in terms of whether or not you are producing more or less reactive oxygen species. Now, there is, in complex 3, you can't really prevent, I'm not aware of anyways how you can prevent this one, but complex 3 is also very prone to electron leakage. And the problem is that both complex 1 and complex 2 go to complex 3. So you're basically just doubling down on the amount of reactive oxygen species that you generate during glucose oxidation, and during fatty acid oxidation, you're doing less of it. So I think that's actually the main cause of age, is literally just that. because you're generating more reactive oxygen species, and then you're becoming the plant. You're becoming no different than the plant. The plant has to produce all of these antioxidants to protect itself. And when you're going through glucose oxidation, you're doing the exact same thing. You're killing yourself at such a rapid rate that you have to produce all of these antioxidants. Your body has to produce all of these antioxidants to protect themselves. So it's a really, really interesting thing. But that's basically the main cause that I think that causes aging. It's just glucose. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, well, I suppose fructose as well, for a different reason.
Yeah.
Glycation, but from a different angle, kind of thing. To switch gears again, you've got quite an unusual sleep arrangement, haven't you?
Yes. Okay, so this one I have not necessarily talked about on my channel yet, but this is a very interesting thing that I've ended up discovering and sort of figuring out on my own. So I decided to start sleeping on the floor because I got inspired by somebody on YouTube who I saw, and they were like, I'm sleeping on the floor. So I was like, why not? I've tried so many ridiculous things. Might as well add one more. So I decided, okay, let's see how true their statement is. They said apparently your bones are supposed to become stronger. So I was like, I don't know if that's necessarily so true, but whatever, we'll try it. And apparently it's even more comfortable than the bed when you get used to it. So I look at this and I'm like, there's no way it's true. But once again, I'm willing to experiment with anything. So I just go straight at it. And I say, okay, well, I'm just going to stop sleeping basically on the bed, and I'm going to start sleeping on the floor. Now, I started sleeping on the floor, and the very first couple days, it was definitely a little bit difficult. It's very, very difficult to sleep. You don't really get used to it that easily, and your bones are still getting used to it. Yes, because your bones will develop and get very used to it eventually. About 10 days in or so, I was falling asleep quicker than I was on the bed. And not only that, my bones were stronger. And I noticed my bones were stronger because, well, first, I could tell a couple ways. I can get a massage, and if they're like literally slamming on my bones like they used to, it would be very uncomfortable. And now it feels almost nothing in comparison to what it did before. As well as, for instance, if I am laying on my rib cage, I don't know if you've ever tried it before, but just lay on your rib cage on the floor and see how comfortable that is for your rib cage. Your rib cage is going to it's not going to feel too comfortable for your rib cage. And now I do that and I have no problems. My rib cage is perfectly fine. Not only that, there's sort of when you sleep on your hips as well, the side of your hips develop like a kind of padding, and you actually get used to it really, really quickly. Your hips get used to it, especially very quickly. I think it depends on which hip that you sleep on as well, because that has to do with Wolff's Law. It's basically increasing bone density by applying pressure. So there's a lot of ways that you can apply Wolff's Law, by the way. This isn't just the only one. But yeah, it's really, really interesting. I found that insanely interesting. And for that matter, I think 40 days sleeping on the floor already as it is. And I am perfectly happy with it. I am probably going to continue sleeping on the floor. It's going to be I'm pretty sure I'm never going to sleep on the bed again. It's that comfortable.
Right.
And I also have a couple of reasons in terms of just Wolff's Law. Basically, it allows you to get a similar result that you would from working out. So instead of working out and basically putting strain on your muscles as well as your bone, you can just lay down, put pressure. It's sort of like a engineer, I guess, because that's a really common thing in engineering is to work with different kinds of systems like pressure, heat, and a couple others. And yeah, so basically you're just applying pressure on the bones. You're not necessarily also straining the muscles, and you're basically getting the same bone density results. Really, really interesting, pretty crazy. I wasn't expecting these results, but they're working. So
Awesome. Yeah. I may even have to try it out. Just having in mind that the first 1 or 2 nights are going to be a pain.
yeah. Oh yeah. I noticed it goes on and off for about 10-ish days or 9-ish days. I can't remember. I recorded a video, and it'll eventually be out. But I have my experience labeling every single day. I just wake up and then I put myself on the camera and I'm like, okay, so today I slept for only 5 hours, or today I only slept for, right? And then eventually it gets better and better. And then you see that I end up sleeping for I end up sleeping really, really well, and it works way better. So yeah.
How about support for your head and stuff? Do you have a pillow? Is that what you use, or?
I do have a pillow, although I've noticed it's possible to go without a pillow, oddly enough. So I've tried it myself. It's weird, but you can what's even weirder is your bones will get so used to it. You can actually lay you can actually lay down on the floor like face first, like with your chest, which is that's probably the most uncomfortable position, by the way. At first, I'm gonna let you know, do not do that position first. But if you try that position later on, as you get used to this, you will notice for some reason you're not really that uncomfortable. In fact, for me, it was pretty comfortable. And I would usually sleep with this side touching the ground or the floor. But it worked really well. I don't know why. It seems to be around here. I don't know what it is, but like the protrusion right around the maxilla, and I don't remember what this one was called. But this protrusion right around here is where I'm putting most of my pressure on. And it feels very comfortable for that matter. But
Right.
your facial bones also have to develop, which is a completely different set of bones, by the way. So if you do try to develop your facial bones and they're not developed and you try to do it like this way, it's gonna be pretty
You're
uncomfortable at
basically
first.
going to end up looking like a proper caveman.
Yeah. Actually, that's a very interesting point in terms of attraction, because I don't know if you've noticed, but there's some dimorphic traits that make that the human eye is very good at discerning, that makes man from woman, and one of them is master muscle size, and the second one is the size. It's yeah. So basically, like if you flex, wait, let me see if I can. I don't know. It doesn't show here, but basically, if you clamp down on your teeth, you're flexing your master muscle, and you're basically chewing, right? So
Yeah, the
chewing
Tom
some
Cruise, yeah, that's the Tom. That's what I call it, Tom Cruise.
a little.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. So probably, I would say it looks a little bit like that. Yeah, even
Do
got
all of
the
it.
armpits up after.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's pretty good. So yeah, it's a little bit of the Tom Cruise look here, and then the eyes are also dictated a little bit by the maxilla, because if the maxilla is like pointing downwards and the face ends up slumping, you'll end up seeing, which is why you can see some people's eyes bulging, which is very unattractive. You've probably seen
Mm.
them before. They're called bug eyes. Vegan doctors I've seen a lot of. I would not recommend it.
They look
It's
like herbivores, don't they? They actually look like herbivores. Those big eyes, and they're often on the side. I mean, I don't have like predator eyes. Like, well, I think one of mine is slightly, and one of them isn't, just off. But
yeah,
if you look at herbivores, they slant opposite of carnivores and predators. They
yeah.
bulge out. They're sitting around here, and they look kind of a bit like just a bit scared and pathetic in some ways. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I quite literally think that that could be the case, because like in terms of attraction, when the maxilla is pushed up and this part is a little bit more elongated, and when this part elongates, it naturally elongates with here. You'll see that every single male model that you can think of actually has a pretty similar skull for the most part. It's almost the exact same. It's basically what a quote unquote proper developed human, I think, is supposed to look like.
Yeah,
That's from
yeah,
my understanding, anyways, because their skull, it's all of these features, wide teeth, like way wider than mine, way wider. That's all based on whether or not the breathing posture is correct, which is a completely different thing. Um, the maxilla and the eyes are determined based on how high this is, which if you move it higher and higher and higher, then you end up getting those hunter eyes that are called, like the ones that look quite literally like a predator
yeah,
instead of like a prey. So
yeah,
the
yeah.
predator ones are seen as more attractive naturally. So it's really really interesting to think about how the face shape and literally what you eat and how you breathe and all of these other factors, for that matter, can literally dictate your attractiveness. It's all based on the environment. I found that very very interesting. So yeah.
Yeah. How do your family and friends respond to all of this?
Ooh, well, at least right now, anyways, we are in the middle of going through a panic scenario, at least with my mom and my parents, and it's because my blood tests come back and it's like, oh my god, a cholesterol of 600. So, yeah, some crazy things. For me, I look at that and I go like, that's great. That means I'm
Win.
using that. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
to me, this is like a no brainer. Some of these things, for instance, that are higher elevated on my endpoint, do seem to be, or from my lifestyle and from how I live, do seem to be pretty normal. So, for instance, my CRP is higher, and you can get that a couple ways. One of them is through less movement or just having autoimmune conditions, which is what I have. I think acne, for that matter, is an autoimmune condition.
Yeah.
So that's a thing. Gut problems make it even worse.
Yeah,
Way,
yeah,
way worse.
yeah.
So I could probably elevate that number if I wanted to by eating a couple plants and throwing in some of that.
Right.
But my triglycerides also are a little bit higher, and that's probably because I'm sedentary as well as I don't move that much. I pretty much spend most of my day sitting down. I'm like working on YouTube videos, or I'm working on editing, or I'm working on another YouTube channel for that matter, multiple. I don't really move that often, so to me, it sort of would make sense that my triglycerides are a little bit higher. But other than that, like everything with my family seems to be fine except that portion. The not brushing the teeth. I mean, nobody knows. In fact, for that matter, I go to this little card room that's really close by over here because quite literally, there's not much else to do. If it's either my computer or it's over there. Because if you live in Merced, California, it's nothing.
Right.
So yeah, so I go over there occasionally, every here and there, and oh my god, like they don't even know that I don't shower. They don't know that I don't brush my teeth. I even gave my YouTube channel to one of the bankers, and he actually saw my channel, and he's like, "Oh my god, wow, I didn't know you do this." And he couldn't tell because he
Mm.
was with me. He's been with me for like 2 years. We've seen each other for about a year or 2 years, and he still couldn't tell. So sort of interesting. Other than that, everything else I'd say probably is pretty fine. Oh no, 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 no. The sleeping on the floor thing got them very frustrated at first because they that one definitely got them frustrated because they were like, "Damn it, why did we buy the bed then?" So,
Yeah,
but
it's like
otherwise,
taking up most of the room. That's like my
yeah,
room. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a big bed. Takes up
yeah,
most
it
of the
looks
room,
big.
space in the room, 'cause this is a mirror, obviously.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, yeah, and if I've got to be careful not to walk back into it because it makes a lot of noise, but, yeah, it would be crazy if I just started to sleep on the floor, but just left the bed like this because it just hogs up all the space.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much what the complaints were about. Because if you look at my room, it's like 80% bed or like 70% bed.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, this is definitely 80%, I reckon.
Yeah.
80% bed. I can just about walk around that side of it. You know, it's huge, but like, obviously I'm in a relationship, but it's amazing to have such a huge bed. We're not big people, me and Lucy, but we can pretty much reach our arms out like this and just about touch each other. Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
it's the biggest bed we can find. It's
Oh
huge.
my god, that is
Yeah, yeah, it's massive. It's a big
Yeah,
bed.
that is pretty massive.
Anyway, do you wanna tell us about your channel and what you've got planned for your channel? Where are you going in terms of direction or
Yeah, yeah. So my channel is at Blaise V. It's basically that name that you see. You just type that in and you see my channel, and you'll get tons of other things. It won't just necessarily be about carnivore because I am trying to teach other things like bone remodeling, for instance, what I'm experimenting with myself right now in terms of making my bones stronger without having to do the same level of physical exercise and not getting basically not losing bone density by sitting around. Instead I'm just applying pressure constantly. So I'll be making a lot of bone remodeling videos eventually in the future. I'll be talking about like some, for instance, interesting things when it comes to attraction, like how, for instance, the maxilla being upwards and this being more outwards. And quite literally, if you're developing as an adolescent, this would probably be best for you because you could get the most out of this while your growth plates are most active. For adults, they can still change this, but it takes much, much longer. Adolescents are able to change this much, much quicker. So I'll be talking about that, and I'll be explaining how exactly you can quite literally remodel your bones. You can make them stronger, and if, for that matter, if you're doing heavy contact sports, you could probably get even more benefits by knowing this because you would know how to constantly put pressure on that part of your bone. And if you're, for instance, straining that side all the time, then you could just increase the density of your bone in that area. So yeah, a lot of things on that. I'll also be talking probably about game theory. I already have a nutrition playlist called The Science Behind Carnivore. So it explains everything that I just explained, except way more that I didn't explain. I plan on finishing that playlist. And once that playlist is done, then I'll move to bone remodeling. After that, I might move to either mental health or game theory and power structures. The whole point is just education as a whole, because I'm trying to educate as much as I can, because I think that education is very important, especially with the age that we are coming up to, which is the age of AI. Because there's a lot of things that are automatically done by AI, and it's kind of scary how good it is. Because if you look at it, it looks like it might replace specialists, which basically kind of nullifies a lot of jobs that exist right now, which I hope that doesn't cause like a panic or an economic downturn. It might cause an economic upturn, but I think it's a little scary because if you look at all the things that you ask it, you can ask the same thing to a doctor and it'll sort of give you the same result. So it's like kind of scary on that end. Um, yeah, that's not just the only specialist. There are many other specialists who are greatly affected by AI. Lawyers, I already know, are losing their jobs. Coders, people who code, are losing their jobs. So I think it'll be really important to be a generalist in the future. And that's why my channel exists. It's just to become a generalist and learn more about the world and start applying all of this to the real world and trying to actually make use out of it. So, yeah.
Cool. How about other social media? Where can we find you?
My Twitter is Blaise V with 3 E's at the end. I eventually, once my channel is a little bit more stable, I'll probably be posting shorts. So I'll put all of my stuff on Twitter. So you can follow me on Twitter as well. I also have a Patreon, but I won't be talking about super scientific stuff on the Patreon. It's more so personal experience stuff and what I've experimented with on some instances. If I have the science for it and I have very, very clear, hard evidence for it, then I definitely would put it on my channel. But otherwise, I'll usually put it on Patreon. Instagram, Blaise Vanderplug. If any, you could probably just type in Blaise V and then you'll find it because you can't spell my last name. Nobody can, it seems. So I'm gonna leave it. Yeah, that. I think that's probably it. I would say.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being generous with your time, and thanks everybody for watching. Awesome. See you in the next one.